Discover the incredible transformation of a dying millionaire, a beautiful doctoress, amazing risk. Walter Henderson stared at the sterile white walls of his hospital room, each tick of the clock echoing his uncertainty. A self-made millionaire alone in a sprawling mansion, he had never imagined that a ticking clock would herald his impending mortality. The diagnosis of terminal cancer had decimated his once booming bravado, leaving behind an unsettling void filled with thoughts of Emily. After a decade apart, memories of her laughter haunted him, reminding him of the choice he had made to chase success at the cost of their bond. He fought the urge to bury his regrets under layers of wealth, a desperate attempt to fill the growing fissures in his heart. Doctor Sarah Kim entered, an unexpected light cutting through his suffocating gloom. Her piercing gaze stripped him of the armor he had worn for so long. She wasn't intimidated by his affluence. Instead, she saw the chasm wrought by years of neglect, understanding that his greatest wealth lay not in bank accounts but in relationships long abandoned. "You can't buy back time, Walter," she had said one day, her voice resonating in the stillness. Her words echoed in his mind, a relentless reminder that wealth brought him only one thing, an unrelenting solitude. With every passing moment, the urgency of his situation mounted. The doctors spoke of treatments, but those words meant little in the face of the lingering shadow of his estranged daughter. Could he reclaim her heart? He felt the weight of his silence fraying against the delicate fabric of his dignity. Sarah's compassion stirred a flicker of hope. She urged him gently to pen letters to Emily. "Every word counts, Walter. You owe her that," she insisted, and in those moments, he felt the frightening vulnerability it took to reach out across years of hurt. But with each letter, he struggled against the paradox of his confessions, leading his mind deeper into turmoil. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But the letters, stitched with heartfelt vulnerability, also bore the weight of his secrets, and as he sought to bridge the void between father and daughter, he found himself wrestling with the shadows of his past. A dark revelation loomed, an ethical breach from the height of his career now resurfacing, threatening everything: his legacy, his life, and the potential reconciliation with Emily. The reality bombarded him. Could he truly seek her forgiveness while his own integrity crumbled beneath the surface? Walter's breath hitched in his throat as he sat in his opulent chair, the ticking clock intensifying the pressure spiraling within. He felt trapped between his truth and the need for familial connection. The doorbell chimed, and his heart raced. Was it Emily? What if she couldn't forgive him for the past decisions that both elevated and imprisoned him? Would she understand or despise him even more? As doubt spiraled in his mind, he realized that the only thing louder than the clock was the silence of love long neglected. In that moment of agonizing anticipation, he braced himself for the truth that hovered on the edge of revelation. One chance remained to mend what time had shattered. The stakes were never higher. The door swung open, and there she stood, Emily, framed by the sterile light of the hospital corridor, her face a mixture of trepidation and disbelief. Walter felt his body freeze, caught between longing and dread. Each fine line on her youthful face reminded him of lost years, of laughter and memories drowned beneath a deluge of his past choices. He opened his mouth to speak but found no words, his throat constricted as if the silence itself were a living thing. "Dad?" The tremor in her voice was unmistakable. Was it laced with anger or sorrow? Could she reconcile this frail figure with the man who had promised her the world? "Emily," he finally managed, but the word fell flat in the room, heavy with unsaid emotions. He willed himself to rise, yet the physical act felt monumental. Finally, he gathered his strength, an ember of determination flaring to life within him. "Please, come in." The invitation felt inadequate, a mere placeholder for the towering wall of hurt that stood between them. As she stepped inside, the air thickened, charged with the tension of unspoken words. He gestured to the chair across from his. She hesitated, her eyes scanning the lavish surroundings that had once defined luxury in his world but now felt like gilded cages. Unsure of how to breach the chasm of the past, Walter focused on the single, maddening thought that anchored him: the letters. He needed to explain, to say the things that had piled up like dust on his heart. "I've written to you," he began, the sentence tasting bittersweet, "to try to explain everything." "Everything?" she echoed, skepticism fissuring the emotional moment. "Is there even an explanation for abandoning your child, for prioritizing wealth over family?" The accusation landed with brutal accuracy, flooding his mind with guilt. But as the truth threatened to envelop him, a surge of clarity pushed through. The urgency of his mortality ignited a desire not merely for forgiveness, but for redemption. "You're right, Emily. There are no words that can justify the choices I made. I thought I was building a future for us. But I lost sight of what really mattered." Walter's heart thudded in his chest as he watched her process his admission. A glimpse of recognition flickered in her eyes, confusion mingling with a longing for connection. What would she see in him, a dying man with nothing to offer but regret? He forced himself to continue, each word heavy yet liberating. "I learned too late that love is worth more than any fortune." "Why now?" she asked, her voice steadier but still laced with pain. "Why reach out when it's almost too late?" "Because I've faced a truth far harsher than I could have known. I realized that dying a wealthy man would mean nothing without you. I've spent so long building walls around my heart, but as they crumbled, I found nothing left but emptiness. I want to know you. I want to mend our relationship, if you'll let me." Her gaze sharpened, and Walter felt the weight of her scrutiny. Was she weighing his sincerity, or plotting her next move in this emotional chess game? He struggled to suppress the dread that surged at the thought of losing her again. "I'm asking for a chance to heal, for both of us." The seconds stretched into an eternity. In that suspended moment, Walter's hope flickered, quickly threatening to extinguish under the weight of doubt. Faced with the reflection of his past choices, he realized this was only the beginning. "How do I know this isn't just desperation, Dad?" Emily replied, her expression unreadable. "What if it's too late for me to forgive you?" The door to his redemption felt ajar, but would she step through? The clock continued its relentless ticking, and for the first time, Walter recognized it wasn't just his life on the line, it was a chance to reclaim a piece of his lost humanity, to rebuild what he had dismantled, one choice at a time. "Please, Emily," he whispered, "can we start again?" With her silence pressing in from all sides, anticipation surged anew. As the moment stretched, Walter braced for what might come next, not just for his own sake, but for the heart of the daughter he sought to understand. What if the secrets he buried weren't just his own, but shared in the pain he had caused? Once again, he faced the truth that loomed large. There was still so much left to discover. The silence stretched uncomfortably between them, a tension filled with lingering doubt, grief, and the faintest flicker of hope. Walter struggled to read the expression dancing across Emily's features. Doubt clouded her eyes, evoking memories of her childhood, wonder-filled moments smeared by his absence. It cut deeper now than before. He recognized it as a fragment of their shared history he had both cherished and abandoned. "Can we even talk about starting again?" Her voice fledged an edge, deflecting from where he hoped their conversation might soar. "Do you even know me?" "It's been years, Dad. I have my life now, friends, dreams, my own path." "Do you know what I want?" Walter opened his mouth but found no response that seemed adequate. Each question launched at him felt like an anchor pulling him into the depths of his own failures. "No, I don't. But I'm here to learn, to hear about your life, your dreams." Each syllable felt hollow against the weight of truth pressing against him. She crossed her arms defiantly. "And how can we trust each other? You're asking me to swallow years of abandonment while you play the remorseful father." His heart twisted painfully. "I deserve that," he admitted, acknowledging her rage with respect. "You're right to feel that way. I left out of my own selfishness, thinking that money would equate to love and stability. Now I see I was wrong." Just then, their conversation was interrupted by the blaring buzz of hospital equipment. Walter's heart raced, every beep signaled the uncertainty of his health moving in an unfavorable tide. Struggling to remain focused, the urgency he faced reminded him that time slipped by like grains of sand. "Emily, please understand that I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in the possibility of something better." She raised an eyebrow, skepticism pouring from her body language.
And what makes this different? How do I know you won't just slip away again once things get complicated?
Walter leaned in closer, his voice transforming into a whisper, as if sharing a secret.
Because I'm ready to face the truth about myself for the first time.
Every moment in this room counts for me in ways I never thought possible when I was whole, and my highest priority is to forge a connection with you.
Will you let me?
The vulnerability in his voice, the raw honesty of his reflection, seemed to breach the fortified walls she had built around her heart. He could see a flicker of something, a hint of vulnerability reflecting back in her gaze, a haunting echo of his own past struggles.
What if we just start with a conversation?
She suggested softly, uncertainty painting her words.
Tell me how you've been these past years. Tell me about your regrets, your achievements. You can start there.
Relief surged in Walter as he perceived an opening, a chance to begin the process of sharing.
The prospect of such vulnerability, however, unearthed the depths of his life's derailing choices.
As he began to speak of the years of fortune spent in solitude, the regrets clamoring to be unveiled, he couldn't help but confront one staggering realization: the life he hustled to build had been a mirage, fraudulent in its neglect of personal relationships. The recounting felt both freeing and daunting, speaking his reality's illuminated spaces he long buried in shame. Emily listened, perceptible stillness formulating beneath each word spoken, her ever-watchful expression hinting at an introspection he hoped would yield connection, yet in the back of his mind lingered a premonition: his fate was sealed with uncertainty. The fainted vibrations of machines and medication demands circled. He was not guaranteed another moment to win her heart, strip away the years of insulation meticulously placed around their relationship. The further he went, the more he withstood the haunting reminder that every confession brought him closer to his mortality. While I may lose this battle, I need you to understand you are worth every struggle I am willing to take on. For the first time, he saw something shift in her, a shift from disbelief to
willingness.
Yet the challenge remained grand, with doubts and fears prevailing in a space tinged with the bitterness of the past.
What if the truth shows that I cannot forgive who you were?
She asked, breaking through the veil of shared histories. He could only meet her eyes, a steady determination filling the void between them. Both families must break apart old narratives. For him, her forgiveness would uncover the unseen corners of his soul.
As the air hung thick with uncertainty, Walter's resolve sharpened.
Their struggles became intertwined, and with every word exchanged, he wondered where this would lead: an inch closer to redemption or the precipice of irrevocable loss.
Was it possible to shatter the confines of time lost? Would unveiling the hidden depths of himself illuminate a path for Emily as well?
The defining moment lingered in the air, heavily charged with the uncharted journey ahead.
The next question danced unfurling: what would happen when the dust settled? Would they find a connection, or would history repeat itself in eternal silence? As Walter spoke, the weight of his regrets transformed into a burden shared.
Each confession unveiled layers of his humanity, revealing not a titan of wealth, but a man stripped to his core. The flicker of a spark ignited between them, a tentative connection breaking through her wall. He observed Emily, her brow furrowed in contemplation, and, for the first time in years, felt hopeful about the possibility of reconstruction, however delicate.
I wish I could go back in time, he said, rolling the words over in his mind before letting them breathe into the silence. But I can't. All I can do is be here now and show you that I'm willing to change.
Her gaze remained fixed, piercing through the narrative and searching for facets of his truth.
Change how? What does that even mean for you?
The skepticism remained, but within it, Walter sensed a flicker of curiosity. He leaned forward, fighting the fatigue that threatened to take hold of him. For starters, I'm facing the truth about my decisions. I'm letting go of the illusion that success can only be measured in wealth. I want to invest in my family, to really understand what it means to be a father, even if I start from scratch. As she absorbed his words, he could see the ambivalence reflected in her eyes. Still, the questions sparked within her mind, and that was progress.
And if the past catches up with you? What will you do then?
His heart skipped, feeling the depth of her concerns.
I'll confront it, he answered resolutely. I'll talk openly about everything: the mistakes, the choices that led me to abandon you. I owe you that honesty. We can't build trust without it. Open, but are you prepared for what that might entail?
Emily, he said, determination anchoring his voice, going through this and facing my demons is a hell of a lot scarier than lying in this hospital room.
I'm choosing to confront my failures head on, and the last person I want to fight is you.
As the room fell into a thick silence, his courage mingled with a tentative hope for reconciliation simmering between them. She drew in a breath, and for a moment, Walter thought he saw her shield of skepticism crack just a fraction.
Okay. Tell me about the choices. What were you thinking when you thought abandoning us was a valid option? A multitude of memories resurfaced, inundating him with pain and regret. I thought success meant I was untouchable.
I was driven, but misguided. I built walls, not just around my heart, but around my life, a golden cage. Money made me complacent, and I rationalized my absence as providing for you, when all you really needed was love. She nodded slowly, a mixture of empathy and understanding beginning to etch itself across her features.
So what about now? Do you think you've actually changed?
Walter paused, measuring his words.
I'm hoping to change, Emily. It's a process.
But part of that is learning how to accept responsibility, how to be vulnerable when it terrifies me. Her eyes bore into his, searching for sincerity.
What if I'm not ready to forgive? What if I don't know how?
I understand that too, he said gently, but I hope to earn the space to explore that with you.
Change doesn't happen overnight, and it starts with honest conversations like this.
He sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a yearning for dialogue amidst their mutual scars. However, the complexity of trust loomed large, and Walter couldn't ignore the swirling uncertainty that danced in Emily's gaze. As she absorbed his words, he wondered whether he was prepared to face not only his past mistakes but the skepticism that had shaped her present. I'm willing to create a path, he said quietly, but it will take time. I need you to be open to that process, and I will be here every step of the way, facing my past. Her contemplation deepened, and he could almost hear the internal battle raging in her mind. The stakes were hauntingly clear, and the fragility of their situation loomed heavily between them. What if he failed to unveil the truth she sought? What if the scars ran deeper than either acknowledged? Walter's heart raced as he considered the opening he had seized, an opportunity wrapped in uncertainty. As the minutes passed in thick, impassioned silence, he could sense the foundations of a new relationship were fragile and unsteady. In that moment, he realized that the most daunting challenge lay ahead, navigating the delicate terrain of trust, honesty, and the ever-looming specter of his own mortality. Would Emily's heart be able to break free of the past, or would the abyss of their shared history swallow them whole? As he awaited her answer, he felt both terrified and exhilarated at what the next chapter would reveal. The quiet between them swelled, heavy with unspoken words. Emily's brow furrowed deeper, the tension stretched taut as a bowstring. Walter could feel the pulse of uncertainty radiating off her, yet within it, an ember of possibility flickered. That flicker ignited a determination within him. He couldn't shy away now. Emily, he ventured, his voice steadier than he felt, let us dig deeper. I can't take back what I've done, but I want to uncover the why behind it. The thought rattled in his mind, why had he prioritized success over love? I thought my financial success defined me, but it merely isolated me. I believed wealth offered security, but it shackled me to my own fears. She scrutinized him, her gaze unwavering. You still haven't answered my question about whether you believe you can change, and not just for the moment. That perceptiveness mixed with skepticism left Walter both vulnerable and exposed. Being here now is an important step, but I need to put in the work. There is no quick fix. I want to confront those fears, acknowledge how I ran from myself and, in turn, from you. I want to rebuild my life not as a wealthy man, but as a father. As a person. Emily's silence grew laden with unshed tears, yet he could also sense an inquisitive part of her unfolding. What does it look like to you, this new life you envision? Walter inhaled slowly, words straining against the weight of his aspirations. It starts with acceptance, acknowledging how deeply I've hurt you. Listening to your feelings instead of waiting for a chance to defend my choices. I need to understand your pain as my reality. As he spoke candidly, Walter could feel the tension shift. The walls she meticulously constructed began to show cracks, but they were delicate, easily mended or easily shattered.
It means putting my family first, Emily.
No more business engagements at the cost of missing your milestones.
No more excuses. I want to be present.
I need space to learn, and most of all, to earn your trust. She wiped a rogue tear from her cheek, betraying her facade of strength.
And what if I can't give you that right now? What if trust feels impossible to rebuild? I won't rush you.
I'm prepared to face whatever it takes. His resolve settled in his stomach like stones anchoring him to the ground. This journey might mean I face the hardest truths about myself, the void I tried to fill with greed, my disillusionment. I fear that part of me still lurks behind the curtain, but I want to confront it all.
To invite you into this process.
His heart raced as he laid out the stakes, exposing not only his vulnerabilities but asking her to reflect on her own. Each moment wavered between chaos and clarity. Emily's expression turned contemplative, weighing his words with the gravity they deserved. Facing your fears might shake the foundation of who you are.
It could make everything feel even more uncertain.
That is true, he replied, a thread of honesty weaving through his voice.
But living in fear has been far more crippling than facing it head-on.
I want to embrace discomfort, to learn from it. I need you by my side, navigating this uncharted terrain together.
A tense silence followed.
Through their exchange, they began to slip into the depths of their history, the unspoken grievances looming large, a bittersweet chiaroscuro of hope and fear. Emily finally nodded, her acceptance fragile yet resolute. If we're going to do this, we have to dismantle every wall we built.
It won't be easy.
What's easy has never had a lasting value, Walter replied, a hint of a smile urging itself forward. Yet, as he spoke, a shadow stirred within him.
Could he truly face the mental abyss awaiting him, the ghosts of his past decisions? The reality of rekindling a connection strained by years of neglect felt daunting, almost unbearably so. The open road ahead was fraught with uncertainties and the shadows of their previous lives lurking just outside their vision. As their conversation lingered like a specter, Walter pondered what tangible steps lay ahead. What would it mean to untangle years of resentment and sorrow, and as Emily's almost tentative acceptance settled between them, he wondered, would the secrets he unearthed about himself provide the clarity he sought, or lead them both into deeper turmoil?
The path to renewal threatened to stretch longer than he'd anticipated, and every step forward would demand that they lean into the very truths that could fracture or mend their bond.
With that thought weighing heavily on his mind, Walter found himself questioning the stakes even further. Was he ready to wrestle with the demons in the dark corners of his life?
The morning sun pierced through the thin curtains, casting a golden hue across the room.
Walter lay awake, his pulse quickened by a restlessness that settled deep in his bones. Unraveling the tangled threads of his past was no simple task.
He rolled onto his side and stole a glance at Emily, who remained lost in slumber. In that moment, he recognized the profound significance of each breath she took, and he felt a swell of urgency.
Today marked a new beginning, but beginnings rarely bore the faint glow of opportunity. The truth was clamped tightly within him, waiting to be unearthed.
His mind wrestled with doubt.
What if he failed? What if the shadows that haunted him proved insurmountable?
With a resolve he didn't entirely understand, Walter slipped out of bed, determined to undertake the first act of his transformation. He needed clarity, no more noise from the outside world, no more distractions. The clutter of his office had always suffocated him, a metaphor for the chaos in his thoughts. He intended to start fresh, shedding the remnants of his past life. After a quick shower, he dressed in the simplest attire he owned, jeans and a t-shirt, foregoing the meticulously pressed shirts he once donned for meetings and lofty dinners. In his mind, it symbolized more than just a change in wardrobe. It represented a conscious decision to strip away pretenses and embrace authenticity. The coffee machine gurgled in the quiet of the kitchen as he prepared the familiar brew. The rich aroma wafted through the air, awakening his senses and prompting reflection on how a simple thing like brewing coffee felt different, more vital and less routine. Every sip became an act of mindfulness, captivated by the intricacies of flavor that he had previously ignored. Once the last drop of coffee had been savored, Walter grabbed his notepad and a pen, settling at the small, worn kitchen table. He began to write about the man he wanted to become. How would he show up for his family? What did it mean to be present? After a few moments of contemplation, words poured out, encasing his thoughts in ink.
Each bullet point marked a personal commitment, a virtual promise to himself and Emily.
Prioritize family time, schedule it.
Practice active listening, breathe before responding. Acknowledge feelings, both mine and theirs. As the morning wore on, Walter's resolve crystallized.
This wasn't merely about repairing a bond fractured by neglect, it was about forging an entirely new identity rooted in vulnerability, accountability, and growth.
He glanced over to the living room where Emily still rested peacefully. Would she even recognize him when he next approached her?
Unceremoniously, he folded the page and tucked it into his pocket, his heart racing at the thought of sharing his intentions with her. He had taken the first steps alone, yet he understood now that transformation couldn't thrive in isolation.
Their mutual commitment would be essential.
He ached to know how she felt, what aspirations resided in her heart, and how they could weave their individual journeys together. But this desire collided with fears he hadn't confronted yet.
Would divulging his growth plans provoke skepticism? Would she reconsider her cautious acceptance?
As he paced the floor, seeds of doubt began to sprout.
Walter's mind swirled with questions tangled in a complex web.
He felt the enormity of the task ahead tighten around him like a vice, and it was in that moment of struggle that he decided he needed support.
One call to a mental health professional, a family therapist, would lay the groundwork for this journey.
He hadn't entertained such an idea before, continually believing he could manage alone. Acknowledging the need for external guidance suddenly felt liberating, a necessary step to honor the commitments he had inked that morning. Taking a breath, he squared his shoulders, reaching for the phone. He'd make that call, but first, he had to face Emily. As he approached the bedroom door, his heart thudded heavily in his chest. Would she embrace the opportunity to rebuild, or would the enormity of his journey draw more distance between them? He paused, realizing he stood at the threshold of a choice that could alter their lives forever. With resolve, Walter opened the door, determined to initiate a conversation that could either set them on a collaborative voyage of healing or thrust them back into confusion, and just as he stepped into the room, his phone buzzed unexpectedly with a message, a reminder from his past that lurked silently, filled with potential gravitas.
As the notification caught his eye, the question loomed: would it disrupt his newfound clarity or serve as a catalyst for deeper revelation?
Walter steadied himself at the threshold, the phone still vibrating in his hand, his heart performing an erratic dance. The message was a reminder of an old meeting, an unfinished conversation with the very people he had distanced himself from in pursuit of wealth and status. With a shaky breath, he dismissed the notification, forcing his attention back to the woman asleep before him.
Each step toward Emily felt monumental.
He felt the weight of his past crashing into the resolve he had nurtured all morning. Just a few moments ago, he envisioned the vibrant promise of newfound openness and vulnerability.
Now, doubts clawed at him. What if he couldn't articulate what he had learned?
What if his voice, tremulous with uncertainty, didn't inspire her to join him on this voyage? He settled into the chair beside her, observing her peaceful countenance. Emily looked so different from the last time he'd truly seen her, not just physically, but emotionally. A flicker of guilt darted through him. Had he ever given her the opportunity to share her thoughts, her dreams? All those months of neglect rendered even the simplest inquiries painfully awkward. Walter's mind raced as he rehearsed the words in silence. He needed to start small, to let her know that this was a journey of mutual discovery.
Emily, he whispered, testing the sound of it.
Finally, he grabbed her hand. Emily, he repeated, louder this time, a slight tremor threading through his voice. She stirred, blinking groggily as awareness washed over her features.
Walter? Is everything all right?
She asked, a hint of grogginess lacing her tone, but her gaze was already sharpening with concern. I want to talk, he said, his voice trailing off as he searched for the right words. Clarity had slipped through his fingers, replaced by the nebulous anxiety that had dominated his previous life. He fought to anchor himself, finding strength in their connection. Her expression deepened with curiosity as she sat up.
About what?
He took a moment, drawing on the commitments he had penned earlier.
About us. About how we've been, where we can go from here.
It felt inadequate, but it was a start. Walter, her brow furrowed, the uneasiness palpable in the air.
You've been so distant for so long. I don't understand what you mean.
There's no easier way to say it, but I've realized how much I've taken our connection for granted, he confessed, a wave of vulnerability crashing over him.
I want to change that. I want to be more present, more connected to really show up for you.
For us. His heart raced as he monitored her reaction, watching for incredulity or dismissal. Instead, she looked pensive, as though weighing his words with a seriousness he hadn't anticipated. Walter, I appreciate you saying that, but we're not just going to turn the page on the past. The knot tightening in his chest flickered with the heat of shame, but he pressed on. I know I can't erase what has happened, but I want to seek help and figure out how to navigate this. I can't do it alone.
I'd made an appointment with a family therapist. Was this the moment, a point of connection, or another fracture?
He clasped his hands in hope, allowing a sullen silence to settle between them.
A therapist?
She echoed slowly, her expression still guarded.
Do you think that's enough?
It's a start. I know change won't happen overnight, and I'm willing to put in the work.
Are you willing to meet me halfway?
Her gaze held a complexity that made his pulse quicken. He faced an uncertain future laden with possibilities but also stark realities.
Could they confront their past together?
I don't know, Walter. I have a lot to think about, she finally replied, stripping away any assumptions he had dared to entertain. Just as silence returned, the phone buzzed again, resonating off the walls like a herald of impending complications. Walter glanced at it, the urgency of the moment crashing back into his consciousness. Maybe this is important, he thought, suspending his response for survival. As he reached for the notifications with a fusion of apprehension and curiosity, the realization loomed: the past wasn't finished with him yet.
What lay behind that message? Would it demand attention at the most critical juncture?
The weight of transformation bore down heavily on him, the quest for growth now intertwined with forces he had yet to understand.
Was he ready for what might come next?
Walter's fingers hovered over the phone screen, still buzzing with unanswered questions. The moment felt fragile, poised for a pivot in the narrative of his life. The last few months of self-reflection had opened doors to place he hadn't dared to enter. He felt torn between the implicit urgency of those messages and the immediate vulnerability he'd just offered Emily. At that moment, he made a decision. He would prioritize this conversation, casting aside distractions in pursuit of authentic connection. He turned his full attention back to Emily, whose expression was mired in thought. The lines in her face whispered of weariness, perhaps an unwillingness to hope again. Walter had contributed to that reticence, and the thought rekindled his guilt.
He began softly, hesitant yet determined. I have to admit, I've been scared.
I avoided even thinking about conversations like this because I didn't know how to confront the reality I created. He breathed in slowly, allowing the vulnerability to seep through. I realize now that avoiding it doesn't make it go away, it just lingers in the shadows.
I don't want shadows between us anymore. Emily's eyes darted away as if grappling with the weight of his admission.
Walter, talking is one thing, but actions matter too.
You've been distant for a long time.
Words don't undo that. The sting of her statement struck home, igniting a spark of determination in him.
Then let us make a plan. I'm not just asking you to meet me halfway. I'm willing to meet you wherever you need me to be.
We can start by setting aside intentional time to communicate, to be honest, perhaps weekly check-ins where we can truly listen.
What do you mean by listen?
She probed, her voice edged with cautious skepticism. I mean being fully present during those conversations, he said, leaning forward. No phones, no distractions, just you and me. A safe space to really hear each other, to unpack all the baggage.
I want to understand what you need, what makes you feel whole. I think we deserve that.
The hope hanging in the air felt fragile yet promising. Emily looked as if she might relent, but in the next moment, the phone buzzed again. It was louder this time, almost insisting. For a split second, he contemplated ignoring it, but the urgency was piercing.
Walter, the phone. He clenched his jaw. What if it's something important?
He stared at the device, a tether pulling him backward into the obligations he had sidelined.
But what about us?
Emily retorted, her eyes flashing with frustration and a hint of sadness. The conflict clawed at him, challenging the truce they had almost formed. He had spent a lifetime prior to this defining his worth through productivity, and yet here he was, striving for presence in a distracted world. Each buzz felt increasingly like a call to revert back to the old ways that had consumed him. At that moment, Walter recognized the stark dichotomy of his situation.
Could he navigate this intricate web of commitments without losing the bonds he yearned to strengthen? He made a choice.
"Let us pause," he asserted, silencing the phone with a resolute tap.
"I'm here now. I choose this moment, and I choose you."
As emotion welled in his chest, he watched for a sign from her, a flicker that might indicate a shared resolution.
Emily blinked slowly, absorbing his declaration. "You may choose me, but I need a promise you'll keep showing up. You can't disappear and expect me to believe it's different this time. Then I promise to aim for consistency. Together, we can redefine our relationship. But we need to actively engage in this. No more shadows."
Each word felt like fierce armor, a commitment he would wear as he embraced this uncertain journey. In that unguarded moment, the distance began to shift.
There was something profound in Emily's acknowledgement that left them both breathless. Yet just as the air filled with the prospect of resolution, the phone vibrated again, breaking the spell.
Walter glanced at the screen, a deep-seated dread washing over him. The notification bore the name of someone from his past. An old colleague tied to the very world he had tried to escape. What unresolved business had beckoned him back into the fray?
"Walter?"
Emily probed, her expression shifting to concern.
He inhaled sharply, the gravity of the crossroads confronting him head-on. I need to know who this is."
As he read the message, mixed emotions surged within him. The journey of transformation was just beginning, intertwining with the complexities of his former life even as he sought to build a new one.
What awaited him in that message? Could the past shatter the newfound resolve he thought he had crafted, or would it reveal a path he had yet to explore?
Walter's heart raced as he read the message on the screen, an invitation to discuss a project he had once been deeply involved in. The sender, Mark, had always been ambitious enough to overlook the personal costs of their endeavors. Business opportunities had constantly pulled Walter away from his family and friends, a pattern he was trying to escape. He glanced at Emily, whose eyes were fixed on him, a silent plea for an explanation. The urgency in the message tugged at him like a familiar anchor, threatening to pull him back into a world he was struggling to leave behind. Yet here with Emily, he felt a flicker of transformation, a commitment to a new journey.
"Walter?"
The way she said his name focused his thoughts, urging him to make a decision. "It's work," he replied, his voice steely as he dismissed the past.
"But I can set boundaries. I'm not revisiting that life." The insistence within him grew.
He had chosen to silence his phone, to engage with Emily's promise of presence. "I won't let this message dictate my direction. I'm learning that the significance of moments isn't found in productivity but in connection." Emily nodded slowly, her cautious expression softening. "But how do you break free from that urge to prove your worth through your work?" she pressed, her voice reflecting a curiosity he had not anticipated.
"That's the challenge, isn't it?"
he mused, even as the weight of the unopened message lingered. He felt like a pendulum swinging between his past and his present. The reality of his old life still haunted him, a specter of doubt that whispered of comfort in familiarity. Yet, the commitment he had just made to Emily radiated a different kind of strength, the one cultivated by vulnerability and authenticity. He realized that neglecting the past didn't equate to overcoming it. Instead, he might have to confront how deeply embedded those old habits were in him. "Every time success comes knocking, I have to remind myself that real triumph isn't measured by my achievements or my productivity," he said, tightening his grip on the phone as if it might disappear. The moment stretched taut between them as they both considered his words. Would he have the courage to refuse the allure of seamless professional success? He needed to embrace the notion of deliberate choice, fully armed with the knowledge that his past would not validate his future. "Let us not dwell in uncertainty," he offered, shifting the focus back to Emily. I want to explore what staying connected looks like for us.
Maybe we can share where we feel vulnerable. Define our own measures of success?
She searched his face, processing his invitation to a deeper discussion.
That sounds promising. But it's not going to be easy. You'll have to fight those impulses every day. An uneasy truth bled through Walter's thoughts as he gazed into her steady eyes. Every day would be a test of his resolve. The lure of validation tied to his former life was intoxicating. The instant satisfaction of a work email commanded attention in ways he had grown cautious of. He stood at the precipice of a new venture, vowing not only to invest in Emily but also to redefine how he measured his worth. If I keep showing up, eventually this commitment will become a habit, right? Lessons of consistency built with trust, day after day? With a firm nod, Emily responded, "That's a good start, but both of us need to keep hold of that intention. You can't promise consistency without it being a daily act. Everything fades without practice." As Walter absorbed her words, realization washed over him. Uncomfortable truths awaited him, demanding his attention and action. Would embracing vulnerability become the cornerstone of his self-discovery, or would he inevitably revert to old habits? Just then, another message buzzed through the air, pulling his attention away again. Mark's impatience seeped through the notification, leaving attention high enough to slice through the moment they had begun to nurture. "Walter?" Emily's voice cut through his distraction, a worried look painting her features. "Let us stay present," he replied, as he resolutely placed the phone face down on the table, prioritizing the conversation waiting to unfold. But as reassurance took hold, he wrestled with the prospect of balance. Could he maintain this focus amidst life's demands? This crossroads had the power to either solidify his commitment or unravel it completely. Determination ignited within him. It was more than just a decision. It was the beginning of a profound inner conflict. Little did he know, this moment was a precursor, a taste of the struggles to come as he sought to unravel the implications of his past life while safeguarding the connections that could redefine him. What awaited him on the other side of this commitment to change? Would he be able to confront the ghosts of his past, or would they pull him back when he least expected it? Walter Henderson sat in the hospital room, transformed in heart and mind. The shadows of his past no longer weighed him down but illuminated the path forward. His focus shifted entirely to Emily, her presence igniting a flame of hope within him that burned brightly, a stark contrast to the darkness he had once embraced. In the moments he spent sharing his deepest regrets and fears, he discovered a strength he had never known. Each day began with intention and resolve. Walter had matured. He was no longer solely the wealthy businessman, but a father yearning to rebuild a bond with his daughter. He committed to a therapy regimen that opened gateways of honesty and compassion, helping him articulate emotions he had long buried beneath superficial success. The fear that once paralyzed him morphed into courage as he and Emily engaged in weekly sessions that laced their past with understanding while they ventured into their intertwined future. Slowly, he watched Emily ease into vulnerability, sharing her own aspirations, dreams, and the hurt that had distanced her from him. The fractures began to mend under the weight of their authenticity. In a month's time, they both recognized incremental healing, small victories that felt monumental. Walter reveled in the visibility of his daughter's laughter again, the golden light that filled the spaces where silence had reigned for years. One crisp evening, sitting across the table from each other, Emily presented him with a small notebook she had kept during their journey, a visual testament to their growth with segments graphed over time: communication, forgiveness, and love. Each section highlighted milestones, emotional confrontations, shared meals, and the little moments that began to define their relationship anew. Walter's heart swelled with pride. The notebook showed he had not just changed but was recognized for it. "I didn't expect you to hold me accountable like this," he confessed, his voice betraying the substance of his gratitude. "You've made me push deeper, reflect harder. This one just about my transformation, it awakened your journey too." Emily smiled, her eyes holding a warmth that comforted him. "You weren't just a father trying to win his daughter back. You've become a part of my life again. That means showing up in ways I didn't think you could. And I expect that from you because I see the effort you're putting in." It was here, facing Emily, that Walter felt an overwhelming sense of clarity wash over him. He had spent years chasing empty accolades, yet the fulfillment of restoring a severed relationship brought him a depth of satisfaction he had never known. Emotions flowed freely between them now,
unencumbered by the past, a living testament to the work they had put in a days past, and Walter found himself channeling his newfound awareness into business as well. He revamped his priorities, hosting meetings that embraced collaboration rather than cutthroat ambition. The shift was palpable, colleagues noted the difference. Walter didn't just lead with metrics, he led with empathy, fostering an environment where voices mattered. Each successful negotiation or agreement grew rooted in shared interests rather than exploitation. When the news came that Walter was being recognized for transforming his firm's culture, acknowledged formally in front of the board and peers, he remained grounded. His heart swelled not from the accolade itself, but from the journey of unearthing the man behind the title. Addressing the gathering, he spoke plainly about the necessity of connection, mentioning Emily's influence as a turning point in his life. "I once believed my worth measured in wealth, yet I stand before you humbled, understanding that it is the relationships we foster that define us." The applause swelled, but Walter felt something deeper: the quiet gratitude for every moment spent reconnecting with Emily, every tear shed during their heartfelt conversations. At long last, they gathered in the hospital without the sterile aroma of antiseptic, but instead, in a cozy living room filled with improvised breakfast foods and laughter. Walter and Emily basked in the joy of the moment, at peace with their journey and the resilience they built. His heart soared, realizing he no longer feared the ticking clock. He embraced it as a reminder of each moment savored, each conversation cherished. The transformation was complete. Walter had leaned into vulnerability, and in doing so, not only resurrected a relationship with his daughter but forged a life defined by connection over riches. As he watched Emily prepare for her day, he smiled, the shadows of his past finally receding, leaving only clarity and purpose. Walter had achieved what he never thought possible: a life filled with genuine love and connection, a legacy defined by personal growth. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel, because this is the moment to show your support for transformative stories like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover these incredible journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Walter's inspiring transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this beautiful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, join the movement of personal overcoming stories.